especially to share with you our experience, but also the challenges that we had in the implementation of this minimum viable data space for a project where we are working right now. So the project is the Instinct project, and that is funded with this European funding for regional development. And the aim of the project is to develop an intelligent system to fight insects that cause damages to the orchard in South Tyrol. Especially, we are working to fight Chidia pomonella and Drosophila suzuki that cause damages, especially in the apple orchards, but also on the cherries fruit and in some varieties of grapes. And why we are here today at the Open Data Hub Day, it's because we thought that the Instinct project was the good opportunity for us, for all the partners, to test the Dataspace's technology. So we think that it was good for us as a test phase, but also to start to be ready in the setup of a regional data space here in South Tyrol. And so let's start with a short introduction to what is a data space. Data space is not just a data portal, like probably you already know or that you already used, but it's a full interoperable framework that is based on common governance principles, standards, and practices that want to support the transaction between the participant to the data space. And so the goal is to improve the efficiency of this data transaction, but also the goal is to coordinate the collaboration between data provider and data consumer with the clear rules on the use of the data that the data consumer can do on the data set itself. And of course, the data space aims to provide some tools to the data producer to control the usage of the data that everybody can do. So it is something more, as I said, than just a data portal. And here you can see, probably you cannot read, but you can just understand that there are a lot of components of the data space that we call building blocks. And these building blocks, that are 17, are organized in two main categories. The first one is about business and organization. And this means that here, each data provider can set all the rules that define the usage that you can do about their dataset. The dataset is one of the offerings that you can find in the data space. And for each of these offerings, the data owner can define the rule of the usage. So the time, maybe the cost, the data license, and so on. And so this is something really important in the concept of the data space, because if you set clear rules, everybody can immediately understand what they can do, maybe also the cost, or what it is necessary and possible to do with that offering, so with the data set that are provided in data space. And then the second group of components of the data space is the technical one, that are the components that compose the IT infrastructure that want to provide all the API and services for the data sharing, data access, and also to control the identity of the data provider, of the data consumer, and the conditions that are applied to the data. So what we did for the Instinct project was to set up just a minimum set of these 17 components. And let's try to have an overview of what we want to set up at the end of the project that will be in December of the next year. So we still have some time to complete, of course. Here in the left, you can see the list of the partners that are the Limbo Research Center, the University of Bolzano, Gruppo FOSS, and EURAC Research that represent also the data collector for this project. So Limburg and University in particular will work to register observation that they measure in the field directly by using a smart application on the phone. And then we have the group of hosts that developed a smart trap that can monitor continuously the spread of the insect in the orchard. And then our role as URAC is also to collect information about the environmental condition in the orchard where these traps are set. Finally, you can read again the left Limburg and University of Bolzano because they also have the role of scientific responsible to analyze the data that we are collecting and to decide when is the right time to react as a consequence of the information that we get from the orchard. And so we will set up at the end of the project an application that will use the data organized in the data space and the core of the schema to react immediately to solve the issue that we have with the insects. Here you can see that we highlighted in the same schema that you saw before just some components, because these are the components that we set up in our project right now. So 4 components for the first group, the business and organization, where we clarify the role of each partner. We also define the consortium agreement, so the rule that we have in the consortium for each partner, and that we are going to use the Instinct project as a use case. So this is just some regulamentation, such as data license that we want to apply, and the right way, the standard that we want to use for the API, for the data sharing, and so on. The second group, we set up 3 of the components of the Dataspace that compose the real IT infrastructure. So here we have all the API to share the data, to discover the data, so the metadata management, and also to control the authentication and the identity of the user of the Dataspace. So this is what we call the minimum set of components to set up the first Dataspace that we will use in the project. So the idea is that the connector, that is the core component of a Dataspace, of the first organization, that could be URAC Research as an example. In the connector, we will fill the list of all the data sets that we want to offer in the Dataspace. So we have a list of offering that can be both data set and both application. And then there is a second connector that is a different user, a different organization with his own list of offering. And these 2 connectors can communicate each other with data requests that are certified by the identity provider at this certificate system that can sign the agreement for the data sharing between the 2 connectors, and so between the 2 organizations. We decided to use, to implement the connector, the one implemented by the Fraunhofer Institute, that developed the implementation for the International Dataspace Association in the testbed reference. So we follow this specification that was implemented by the Fraunhofer Institute. So here you can see the specific schema of our Dataspace, the connector, as I said, for URAC Research, where we organize the environmental dataset that are stored in our IT infrastructure. And in the right, you can see the connector of the Limburg Research Center, where we store the observation about insects on the orchard that are stored in their IT infrastructure. These 2 connectors are communicating by the Dataspace protocol. So it's not just a connection between the 2 API, but they follow this specification that is called Dataspace protocol. And finally, after this agreement, they communicate by the API that are already existing in the IT infrastructure to maintain always the control on the data. Here you have just a screenshot about the user interface where each organization can fill the information about the offering. So the dataset or application that they want to provide in this data space to the participant. It's just a list where you fill, as an example, the license, the description of the dataset, and so on. And after, it will be immediately available in the data space for all the participants. What are the challenges that we had during the implementation? There are many. It's a long list that now I don't want to describe completely, but just to say that it's not easy to start a data space, because probably when you start to fulfill this legal issue or the role of the participant, probably you have to answer to some question that you didn't imagine when you started. And so we had a lot of challenges in understanding, because also you have to agree these legal issues together with the project partners. But especially we also have a lot of technical challenges, because the problem is that we are still in an early stage implementation of data spaces. So there are a lot of specifications that continuously change, but the implementation are still not complete, or maybe if they are, that the documentation is still weak. So it's not easy to install, even if it is open source. You can try, but it's a bit challenging. And so that's why now we are here to share with you our problem, also to create as a next step some networking between the organizations that are here in the Noitech Park. That probably is the most important thing for today, to do networking. In the project, for sure, we want to consolidate the data space that we set up. We should create some more connector for the other partners, or for Group of OS, but also for the University of Bolzano. And we are also evaluating the possibility to adopt the data space as a service from existing offering at European level, because probably this may be for sure more easy, but we should understand if this is easy to maintain for a long time, or if the cost is too high for us for a research center. And well, so I hope that this was interesting for you, and if you want to continue the talk, we can just enter in contact with us, and we will be happy. So thank you very much for the attention.
Thank you, Andrea Vianello. Thank you for this presentation, which is very interesting, I have to say. We also are a partner with the Open Data Hub of IDSA, International Data Spaces Association. Yes, association, yes. Not alliance. I always confuse these two. And I have to say, and we are also a member of the Eclipse Foundation because of the Dataspace working group. And I can confirm it is not easy, because the standard is still in the making. The tools are also lagging behind, and there are not many real case scenarios we can get inspired from. And I see that you connected with Limebook, yes. And this is for sure very important for us to get a learning. Thank you very much for sharing this.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.